if you checked some of the reports that have come out, VR investment is actually fading right now. It's less interesting to investors, and they're putting less money into it right now. And mostly because there's not a lot of interest in VR right now. Of course, this is for first quarter numbers, but according to Sony, the PlayStation VR did not sell as well as they wanted it to at Christmas time. And that could be a couple reasons. It's $500, which is more than the system. There's not a lot of games out there for it right now. And really, it's hard to get people into it. But here's where things are interesting to me. If VR is not interesting right now to a person, but let's say Nintendo, who keeps kind of hinting at, they're playing around with VR, we're going to make sure it works. If Nintendo figures out a way where you can buy a $30 headset, or in their case, maybe it's a $40 headset because the dock is $90 for whatever reason. Let's say it's $40 for the headset. You buy it and you have VR by using the Switch close to your face. Do you think that is enough to get people on their way to using VR? Is that the stepping stone that I think that the industry needs right now?
No, honestly, it's going to be more whether the games show us something different. Like normally when I think of VR in aspects of like what it does to enhance games, I mean, most of the ones that make VR seem interesting are the jump scare games, survival games that try to come at you with something, kind of like how movies used to do it back when 3D movies started to become a thing. That was it. Like, oh, look, the ball, it's coming for you, that type of stuff. And I think only a few games have really done it interestingly. The one where you have to defuse a bomb where your friends are kind of telling you what to do while you're wearing the VR helmet. That's kind of interesting, but I mean, they did it. It's done.
That was like everybody talks and nobody blows up or something like that.
Yeah, but that's been done. Are they going to do it again? Like that mechanic's been explored. I guess they could do it kind of better or enhance the puzzles a little bit. But VR still just feels like a gimmick to me. And I know maybe one day down the road, someone's going to show a game or maybe an addition on top of VR that's going to make it feel really good. But even the people I've seen developing for it, there was that really cool video we watched of the guy developing that FPS for it, where the two controllers were actually your hands. You had to like know how to reload and stuff. You're not getting force feedback though while doing that, so it doesn't really feel that great. And when he was showing it off, it was shaking the gun around, it was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So I feel like the tech is still expensive, but also not where it should be for it to be amazing. And maybe our exploration of it creatively isn't doing enough, because I mean, it's at this point VR is just, do I want more ambience in a jump scare game? That's it. That's the only reason I'd really think to get one.
I would have a slightly different argument. Because I agree. I do definitely think that when it comes to making VR, breaking VR out into the mainstream, it comes down to more than just games. I think VR is going to be used for a lot of different things other than video games. But as far as video games are concerned in general, it comes down to what sort of experiences we'll be able to play. And PSVR, I have an Oculus Rift, and I owned a Vive for about a month. And then
what happened to that Vive?
I returned it.
I thought you sold it. I was gonna say I would have bought it from you. I need to get something like that.
Yeah, no, you totally should. I definitely think that it's worth getting now. Now like the ecosystem has sort of grown.
I just want to play Rick and Morty.
Yeah, Rick and Morty. I haven't played that yet. What I did play, however, is the what's it called? Oh, Super Hot. Yeah, Super Hot in VR, and that. To me, playing that was a huge game changer because of the Oculus Touch controllers. That was really the first time that I messed around with like guns and swords, and actually having that experience of people running at you and you physically needing to sometimes get all the way into like crawling position to dodge things, and then get right back up and, slice someone, and, and you're in slow-mo. It's one of the coolest things I've ever experienced. And I've been playing video games all my life. I've played a lot of them. But that right there proves to me that the tech is, if we're not there, we're right on the edge, and we will be there very soon. Like, sure, we're still figuring out locomotion and how to move around in a virtual space without throwing up. But a lot of people, when it comes down to it, it also comes to tolerance. When I started out, like, it was a little difficult for me, but
now you just take Dramamine before you play.
You can. It helps some people. You can take some ginger. There are things you can do. But honestly, when it comes down to it, it's just about experience. And I played through Resident Evil 7 entirely in VR.
That's probably terrifying.
Yeah,
jump scare game.
That well, you don't have a PSVR, John?
No, I don't have a PSVR. No.
Oh man, just yeah. I mean, well, actually, if they're the same price as the Oculus or closer in
well,
price.
at the time of thinking about getting the PSVR, I had to choose between Shark Cage, where you get lowered into the water and watch a shark swim around, and I guess Arkham VR.
Yeah.
In which case, I was like, I feel like $500 get me something a little better.
Yeah, exactly. The library was a lot better on Oculus, but Oculus doesn't have something like Resident Evil 7, and that, in my opinion, is like really the first full-fledged like VR type experience game that you can play. From
the word is it's a timed exclusive.
Right. Well, that's true. You're right. Absolutely correct. Yeah. So
for VR to become mainstream, in my opinion, I think it would have to be maybe another console cycle down the line, or 2 consoles cycle down the line, where it actually comes with the console built in. You know what I mean? Like everything is a seamless experience. You don't have to buy all these separate pieces of hardware. Because once you start releasing consoles, and then now you got to buy this separate whole piece of hardware along with it, you kind of stagnate sales right off the bat right there. Putting add-ons to the system, they never sell as much as the actual console does. So I think we're not quite there yet, but maybe down the line, VR would become something that is just seamless and integrated into the console experience itself.
I mean, at the very least, it should get to a point where it costs almost the same as a controller. Because, I mean, you're paying a lot of money for maybe 1 or 2 experiences in a short period of time that are going to then feel like all the rest afterwards. And I get where you're coming from with the experience of playing the game with, you just said, Philip, which I forgot, but it should feel amazing. But then are you going to feel that amazing in the second version of that game? Mm-hmm. But with like a multi-$100 piece of equipment, or if it was a $60 piece of equipment, you'd probably feel way better, because then you're not thinking like this is the same thing. Instead, you're just focusing entirely on the experience at that moment, because then it's just something you have extra. That's not really that much more.
I think right now, like, you know, jumping into VR, you're very much an early adopter. And with that, I think you should know the risks of there sort of being like, you know, weirder, more niche games, and people haven't really figured out how it all works yet. So you're getting into something that is a totally new playground for everybody, and we're all learning the rules, you know? So I think if you're going to go in now, like, expect to see that, you know, expect to see those sorts of games. But I think that we will, you know, in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe within the next console generation or the one after that, we'll see VR as an option. But I still think that playing games like traditionally on a television or now in handheld mode, like, you know, portably, is going to be just as popular, just as common, and people will prefer it just as much, if not still be the most popular way to play games at the end of the day.
So I still think the big well, there's 2 big barriers I think for VR right now. One is the price, because it's obscenely expensive to get into VR, and 2, it's the setup. Having to tether yourself to the ground, for example, or have cables all running all over the place, make sure things on your computer, if you're running, you know, your drivers are correct, your frame rate's good enough, everything, resolution's okay. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it that somebody in the mainstream consumer is just not interested in putting in work to play a game that maybe is more of a tech demo than anything else. And I think in this case, Nintendo has a very interesting possibility in front of them. They have an interesting opportunity. The Switch, all right, so we all know about, obviously, those cell phone holders where you put it in front of your face, you can walk around, do VR and stuff like that way, where it's like faux VR, but it works at least to an extent. And it's cheap. That's the big thing. I feel like they could even get to a point where if the Switch VR that way becomes a thing, maybe the headset comes with the Switch in like a holiday bundle or something down the road when games are released for it. There is a chance that Nintendo could give a cheap option that is at least conformed to where, okay, it's the Switch. Someone's not going to run a Galaxy S8, and then this other person over here is going to run like a Galaxy S5. We have to make sure it works across the board with that, because that'd be almost impossible, because cell phone technology moves so fast, whereas you know what you're getting with the Switch. And if they can come out with something where, even if it's a separate accessory for $40, I think most people are going to buy it just to try it out, even, especially if it's something to do with Mario.
The one we had at the store that we picked up was what, $20 that worked for pretty much all our phones?
We bought it for no reason. We bought it, played it for an hour, and then was like, oh, it's cool. But we still at least had a taste of VR, because if I get like a taste of VR that way, and maybe it's even like, I don't know, maybe they put F-Zero where you're racing around in F-Zero, you know, with that. Maybe you then go that was actually pretty cool. Let me check out the next level up. Maybe I'll check out Oculus then, or maybe I'll check out Vive because I understand what it is now. You know, most times you go into Best Buy and you have to wait in line to try it, which, by the way, they're taking them away from Best Buy now because it just didn't perform well. No one wants to try it out because, I mean, it's a whole setup. You're embarrassed if you throw up or something, right? In this case, you take 220s, you take it to maybe Walmart, you get a headset, you come home, you pop your Switch in it. If they can make all this possible, of course, I think they can to an extent. And then you're just off and playing. You set up your game and you go.
A real good idea would be to release a HD remaster of Super Mario 64, and it'd be cheap, but it would be a really immersive experience, and you could experience that game in VR.
Maybe it'll be like a whole new, you know how we have tabletop mode and TV mode? Maybe we'll have VR mode next for the Switch. You know what I mean? Something like that. But I just don't see the Switch tablet itself being the screen that you stick in front of your face, because 720p would just be like a ridiculous screen door effect. You know, like I just don't see that working.
There was somebody who actually did. Okay, so I'm trying to remember who this person was. I'll look him up on YouTube while I'm talking just to make sure they get credit for this, because they actually did use the Switch for 3D. What they did was, like a VR experience, what they did was they launched the browser. They put it into, because you can, of course, launch the browser through like back-end means on the Switch. They put it into a holder that held it in front of their face, and then they played a stereoscopic YouTube video. And that gave them the illusion of it, and they said it worked fine. Like there wasn't a massive screen door effect, but it was still there. Of course, it's also not developed for it. Maybe, who knows, you know, what wizards at Nintendo can do. But they said it worked to an extent. And really, as long as the performance matches up with the price, like if you spend $500 on it, you don't want screen door effect. You spend like $30 on it, you'll be like, okay, I got my money's worth for that, you know?
Right. They could definitely, I guess, get away with it there. But I don't think that they want to showcase Nintendo VR, to be like the crappiest VR available, because it would be the crappiest, you know, as visually at least. You know, like for something as simple as like most of us have smartphones in our pockets, and most of those smartphones are capable of VR. And like that's what that experience looks like right there, which is miles and miles different from what the Oculus Rift can do on a decent PC, or even what the PlayStation Pro is, or PlayStation 4 is capable of doing. So I think that if Nintendo wants to say, here's our VR, here's what VR looks like for Nintendo, it's either going to be something really weird and really different, or it's just not going to be on this Switch, or it's going to be on a different headset that, like you said, is going to be very, very, very priced at a convenient point. You know what I mean? But I just don't see them like messing it up for themselves that early on.
This was Nintendo, by the way. Nintendo, who's the one who actually did this YouTube video up right now. It's pretty cool to see. It's an interesting idea, something you can try for yourself if you just go out and get a $20 holder at Walmart.